If you've been gardening for a few years, you already know the truth about mulch. You spread it in April, it looks great for about 6 weeks, and by July the weeds are growing right through it. So you spread more every single year, the same cycle. But there is a group of plants that professional landscapers have been using for decades to skip that cycle entirely. They spread on their own, they choke out weeds from below, and once they fill in, your maintenance drops to almost nothing. These are ground covers that replace mulch, herbicide, and backbreaking weekends. And the best part is that every single plant on this list can be started for under $10 per flat, and several of them you can propagate for free once you have a single starter plant. Compare that to the $40 to $60 you spend on mulch every spring, plus whatever you're dropping on weed killer throughout the summer. Ground covers are a one-time investment. Mulch is a subscription. Ground covers suppress weeds the same way a good roof keeps rain out of your house. These plants form a dense, living carpet that blocks sunlight from reaching the soil surface. Weed seeds need light to germinate. No light, no weeds. The thicker and tighter the ground cover, the fewer weeds push through. Some of these plants also release natural compounds from their roots that discourage competing plants from taking hold. Professional landscapers call this allelopathy, and it is one of the reasons certain ground covers outperform mulch year after year. Number 1. Creeping thyme. If you could only plant one ground cover from this entire list, this would be it. Creeping thyme grows in zones 3 through 9, which covers nearly all of the continental United States. It tops out at about 3 inches tall, forms an incredibly dense mat, and it blooms with tiny purple or pink flowers in early summer that pollinators go crazy for. You can walk on it. You can mow over it once a year if you want to keep it tidy, but you do not have to. It handles full sun and poor soil, which means it thrives in exactly the spots where your lawn struggles. Between stepping stones, along pathways, on slopes where grass refuses to hold. One flat of creeping thyme plugs typically runs about $6 to $8 at a garden center, and each plug will spread to cover roughly a square foot within its first growing season. By year 2, those plugs are touching each other, and weeds simply cannot compete. Number 2. Creeping Jenny. This one is for the shady, moist spots in your yard where nothing else wants to grow. Creeping Jenny, also called moneywort, produces long trailing stems covered in round, coin-shaped leaves. The golden variety lights up dark corners of your garden like somebody turned on a lamp. It grows in zones 3 through 9, prefers partial to full shade, and spreads quickly through runners that root at every leaf node. That spreading habit is the key to its weed suppression. Within one growing season, a few starter pots will carpet an area that used to be nothing but bare soil and volunteer weeds. One word of caution though, Creeping Jenny is aggressive. Plant it where you want full coverage and where a border, sidewalk, or driveway will keep it from invading your flower beds. Some gardeners install a simple metal or plastic edging strip around the planting area to keep it contained, and that small step saves headaches later. Number 3. Sedum, specifically the low-growing varieties. If you have a hot, dry, sunny area where you are tired of fighting crabgrass and dandelions, low-growing sedums are your answer. Dragon's blood sedum and blue spruce both form tight mats of succulent foliage that need almost zero water once established. They grow in zones 3 through 9, handle poor and rocky soil, and prefer to be neglected. The budget angle on sedum is outstanding. You can propagate it for free by simply breaking off stems and laying them on bare soil. They root within a couple of weeks. One $3 pot of dragon's blood from a garden center can become 50 plants by the end of the summer if you take cuttings every few weeks. That is the kind of math that makes mulch look like a terrible investment. Number 4. Sweet woodruff. Sweet woodruff is one of the best options for deep shade. If you have areas under mature trees where grass has given up entirely and you are tired of looking at bare dirt, this plant will carpet that ground with whorls of delicate green leaves and tiny white flowers in spring. It grows in zones 4 through 8 and prefers the shady, slightly moist conditions that kill most other ground covers. Sweet woodruff spreads through underground stems, filling in gaps on its own schedule. It is not as aggressive as Creeping Jenny, so you do not need to worry about it escaping into your lawn. The leaves have a pleasant vanilla-like fragrance when dried, which is a nice bonus. A 6-pack of sweet woodruff plants runs about $5 to $7, and within 2 seasons those 6 plants can cover a 10 by 10 area under a tree. Number 5. Also called bugleweed. Ajuga forms rosettes of dark green or burgundy leaves and sends up short spikes of blue-purple flowers in spring. It grows in zones 3 through 9, handles sun or shade, and spreads through runners that fill in gaps quickly. The dense rosettes overlap each other and create a living carpet so thick that weeds cannot push through. One reason ajuga works so well for budget gardeners is that it produces offsets constantly. Every runner that touches the ground roots and forms a new plant. You buy one flat of ajuga in April, and by October, you have enough material to start a second planting area for free. The division process takes about 30 seconds per clump. Just pull the rooted offsets apart, stick them in the ground, water them once, and walk away. Number 6. White clover. This one surprises people, because many homeowners spend years trying to kill clover in their lawns. White clover, specifically the Dutch white variety, is one of the cheapest ground covers you can plant. A bag of white clover seed costs about $4 to $5 and covers roughly 1,000 square feet. Compare that to a pallet of sod. Clover fixes nitrogen from the air and deposits it into your soil, which means it feeds itself and whatever is growing around it. It stays green through summer droughts that turn grass brown. It grows in zones 3 through 10. It blooms continuously from late spring to fall, which supports pollinators, and it stays short, rarely exceeding 6 inches. The dense mat of 3-leaf foliage is thick enough to crowd out annual weeds within its first full season. If you are looking for the absolute lowest cost ground cover on this list, clover is it. Before the 1950s, clover seed was included in every bag of lawn grass seed sold in America. The chemical lawn industry convinced homeowners it was a weed, and they have been selling herbicide to kill it ever since. Number 7. Mazus. Mazus reptans is one of those ground covers that not enough people know about. It stays under 2 inches tall, spreads rapidly through creeping stems, and produces delicate purple or white flowers in spring. It grows in zones 5 through 8 and handles both sun and partial shade. You can walk on it, and it bounces right back. Mazus fills in between stepping stones and along pathways where grass dies from foot traffic. The tight, low-growth habit means weeds simply cannot get established. A flat of Mazus plugs costs about the same as creeping thyme, around $6 to $8, and fills in at a similar rate. Within 2 growing seasons, you have a solid flowering carpet that never needs mowing. If you are finding this useful, consider subscribing. This channel covers budget gardening tips every week, and there is a lot more coming on low-maintenance landscaping. Number 8. Pachysandra. If you have tried everything in deep shade and nothing has worked, Pachysandra is worth considering. This evergreen ground cover grows in zones 4 through 8 and is one of the few options that stays green year-round in heavy shade. It grows about 8 to 10 inches tall and forms a dense canopy of glossy leaves that completely blocks light from reaching the soil. Pachysandra spreads through underground runners, and while it is slower to fill in than some of the other plants on this list, once it establishes, it is nearly permanent. Professional landscapers plant it under mature oaks, maples, and other dense shade trees where nothing else survives. The initial cost is moderate, usually about $8 to $12 per flat of bare root starts, but you never have to replace it. That one-time investment covers that shady spot for decades. Number 9. Vinca minor, also called periwinkle. Vinca minor is an evergreen ground cover that grows in zones 4 through 9 and handles everything from full sun to deep shade. It produces trailing stems covered in small, glossy leaves and blooms with blue-purple flowers in spring. The stems root wherever they touch the ground, and within a couple of seasons, a handful of starter plants will carpet a large area. Vinca minor is especially useful on slopes and banks where mulch slides downhill during heavy rain. The dense root network holds the soil in place while the mat of foliage blocks weed germination. A flat of vinca minor typically runs $6 to $10, and division is simple. Just cut rooted sections from the edges and replant them wherever you need coverage. Be aware that vinca minor is considered invasive in parts of the eastern United States, so check your state's invasive species list before planting. In areas where it is a concern, ajuga or pachysandra can fill the same role without the invasive risk. Number 10. Brass buttons. Brass buttons, or Leptonella squalida, is a New Zealand native that has become popular as a lawn alternative in zones 4 through 9. It grows flat against the ground, rarely exceeding ½ an inch tall, and produces tiny bronze-green fern-like foliage. It looks like a miniature fern carpet from a distance. It handles full sun to partial shade, tolerates foot traffic, and spreads quickly through creeping stems. The foliage is so dense and flat that weed seeds have nowhere to land and germinate. Brass buttons is one of the more uncommon plants on this list, so you may need to order it from a specialty nursery online. Expect to pay about $8 to $10 for a 4-inch pot, but each pot will spread to cover several square feet within a season. Number 11. Creeping phlox. This one is for the gardeners who want ground cover that doubles as a spring color explosion. Creeping phlox grows in zones 3 through 9, stays about 6 inches tall, and absolutely covers itself in pink, purple, white, or blue flowers, for several weeks in April and May. During the rest of the year, the needle-like evergreen foliage forms a dense mat that suppresses weeds. Creeping phlox is especially effective on slopes, retaining walls, and rock gardens. It cascades over edges in a way that looks intentional and polished. Propagation is straightforward. After flowering, take 4-inch stem cuttings, dip them in rooting hormone, and stick them in moist soil. They root within a few weeks. One $8 pot of creeping phlox can give you enough cuttings to line an entire garden border by the end of summer. Now, before you head to the garden center, there are a few planting tips that will save you money and frustration. First, spacing matters more than you think. The temptation is to buy fewer plants and space them far apart to save money. That works, but it also means it takes 2 to 3 seasons for the plants to fill in completely. During those gap years, weeds will still find openings. If you want weed suppression within the first full growing season, plant on 8 to 10-inch centers for aggressive spreaders like creeping jenny and ajuga, and on 6-inch centers for slower growers like pachysandra and sweet woodruff. Second, prepare the bed properly before planting. Remove existing weeds down to the roots. Lay 2 to 3 inches of compost over the area and work it into the top few inches of soil. This gives your ground covers a strong start and helps them outcompete any weed seeds that are still in the soil. You do not need expensive amendments. Homemade compost, aged leaves, or even grass clippings work fine. Third, water consistently for the first 4 to 6 weeks after planting. Ground covers are tough once established, but they need regular moisture while their roots are getting settled. A soaker hose on a cheap battery timer is the easiest setup. After that initial establishment period, most of these plants can handle rainfall alone in zones 5 through 8. Fourth, do not be afraid to mix ground covers. Many professional landscapers use 2 or 3 species together to create a tapestry effect. Creeping thyme and low sedum work beautifully side by side in sunny areas. Sweet woodruff and ajuga make a great shade combination. Mixing species also means that if one struggles in a particular microclimate, the others fill in the gaps. Fifth, think about propagation from the very start. Every plant on this list can be divided or propagated for free once established. That first $10 investment in a flat of creeping thyme can become hundreds of plants within 2 years if you divide and replant the runners each fall. You are not just buying a plant, you are buying a plant factory. The math on ground covers versus mulch is not even close. A typical suburban yard has about 500 square feet of garden beds. Mulching that area costs roughly $50 to $70 per year in materials, plus several hours of labor each spring. Over 10 years, that is $500 to $700 in mulch alone, not counting the herbicide you spray when weeds inevitably push through by July. Compare that to ground covers. A one-time investment of about $60 to $100 in starter plants, plus 1 afternoon of planting, plus 1 season of watering. By year 2, you have living mulch that feeds itself, spreads to fill gaps, suppresses weeds without chemicals, and looks better every year instead of decomposing into a mud-colored mess by August. Ground covers are not just a gardening technique, they are a financial decision. And for anyone on a fixed income or a tight budget, the choice is obvious. Stop buying mulch, stop spraying herbicide. Plant something once that does the work for you, and spend your weekends doing something you actually enjoy. If you want more tips like this, there are plenty more on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.